Hello, I'm Jimmy Sanders, and it's my pleasure to be here for the Mind the Set conference for 2021. My topic today is evolution over iteration, security as a business enabler and accelerator. So first, let's lay out a few ground rules. This is meant for general audiences, all open minds, please. If you can disagree with what I'm saying. You can have your own ideas. I'm not telling you that this is gospel or this is something that you have to adhere to. I'm telling you, please have an open mind about it. This is not me presenting directly for ISSA. This is not me presenting directly for Netflix. These are my opinions. And yes, they are subject to change. So a little about me, right? So I'm currently the president for San Francisco ISSA chapter. I also run the security for Netflix DVD, and I'm on the board for ISSA International as well. So I've had the opportunity to work at a lot of amazing, great companies, and I have an amazing peer network that gives me many ideas and many topics to choose from to implement in my security programs. With that being said, let's get to our topic of the day, evolution over iteration. And the reason why this topic became near and dear to my heart was I was in the car with this person, and this person was a Native American person that had an accent, and they were using a map application, and they kept trying to use a map application. They started using their hands, and I said, why are you using your hands for this voice application? Everybody just, you just say what you want the map to take you to, and it takes you to that. And the person looked over me and said, Jimmy, sometimes that map application doesn't understand me because of my accent. Now, this is an accent that's spoken by at least 30% of the American population, especially in Silicon Valley. And so for this mapping application that's been out for at least 10 to 15 years to not understand their voice was near and dear to me because I'm a minority as well. I understand how that, and that's a good product that keeps getting iterations, but it's not getting evolution to make it better, because it should be able to say, this is a American tongue with an accent by now. But instead, we keep doing iterative approaches. We keep doing iteration instead of saying, this product is good, but we need a better product. We need to make it evolutionary product. And so that's where I see security practices, where we keep iterating over security practices piece by piece by piece, instead of actually doing real change, making security really better. And hopefully some of these ideas I'll be presenting to you are to make security better. So first of all, public service announcement. As I said before, I talk to many people. I go to many organizations and speak, and I have the chance to hear about presenters constantly saying, the end user is the weak link, or the user is the weak link, or the user shouldn't have clicked on this, or we run these phishing tests to test the importance or the intelligence of our users. And my response to many of these people is that, why are you building a system where you're putting the onus on your end user to be secure? Why aren't we building better security programs? And so for me, I don't blame my end users for something that I haven't exposed to them, for something I haven't taught to them, and for a 0 day. If a 0 day gets through my environment, I'm not going to the end user blaming them. I'm asking myself, what am I doing that I can do better in my security program? So please stop always blaming the end user. Sometimes users do some interesting things, but at the end of the day, hopefully we have to own our security implementation. So let's get back to the program now that I've gotten that off my chest. And yes, we're talking about evolution over iteration. And for many people, I like to say it's mind over manual, because one of the questions I get asked several times is, Jimmy, what do you do for a living? Is it hard work? And I tell people all the time, I don't work hard, I think hard. And hopefully you're doing the same thing too. You shouldn't be punching a lot of keys or running around reviewing a lot of logs file by file. Hopefully we're coming up with solutions to help us think harder to make better critical decisions instead of looking at 1,000 lines of code, looking at 2,000 lines of code manually, trying to find the needle in the haystack. Use a magnet instead, by the way. So let's talk about some past security ideas. So the past security idea or the framework, especially when I started in computer security eons ago, is we would have a single lane and we would have barriers in place for that lane. And so we would say, okay, you have to, once you reach this level, we stop you, we check your code, we run scans on it. Once you reach this other level, we stop you, we check your code, you read scans on it. What we tried to do in security is we tried to minimize the risk of the company and ourselves by limiting the speed of change. And that simply told developers, the owners of the product, and everybody around us, stay away from security if you want to get something done. Instead of enabling the business, we were disabling the business. So we became known as the security disablers, or the entity of no. And so luckily, I was able to join other organizations that broadened my mind some, like ISSA. And so one of the things that I do at ISSA currently is I'm a chairperson for the Emerging Technologies Division. And what we do is we look at new technology, we look at new ideas, and we say, what's the next thing that's going to happen in the next 2 years? Is it quantum computing? Is it crypto? What is it? And how can we, as security practitioners, help our members to do it better? The other thing that I do is I'm a chairperson on the Cyber Executive Forum. And so I get the opportunity to talk to many cyber executives. And I ask them questions time and time again. What are the things that keep you up at night? What are the things that are giving you pain points? What do you care about? Do you care about ransomware? Maybe, maybe not, because it depends on where you are on the evolutionary scale of your security environment. But by talking to the executives directly, by working with executives in security and in the IT department and the executives of the company directly to figure out what are their pain points, help me and my team and my peers do security in a much more holistic and forward-thinking way. Obviously, I work for DB.com, a Netflix company, and I run the security there. One of the core tenets of working at DB.com is what we call freedom and responsibility. That means, boiled down in a nutshell, is that we will give each employee the freedom to do their job role. If your job is to do accounting, we're going to let you run with that and do it to your heart's content. If your job is to do development, we're going to let you do that. And we will believe that you're the expert. You know what's best for you to do your job the best way possible. At the end of the day, we've given you the tools. We've given you the bandwidth. We've given you the freedom. Now it's about you delivering. We need for you to be held responsible. And so that's what, when you see anybody speak from Netflix or DVD.com or any affiliate, when we talk about freedom and responsibility, that is what we're talking about. And so when I'm developing security ideas, I'm always keeping that in mind, that my employees need to have the freedom to do what they need to do. I can't hold them back. I can't disable the business. I have to find solutions and ideas that are enabling our business. And I hope that you're doing something similar as well. Because at the end of the day, I showed you that picture of the lane, and it was a single lane. And we had these barriers in place. And we said, okay, you stop here, you stop there. And you know, some people are like, oh, well, that's secure. You're right, that is secure, but that doesn't enable the business. Because the business is competing with all these people on this hyper fast speedway. And they have competitors, they have, you know, auditors, they have so many people going against them. And we need to find a way to ensure that we're enabling them to go as fast as they can. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is look at all these pieces, and what security is doing is looking at all these pieces, and hopefully we're making it such that we're fitting into that piece of the business puzzle to make us an integral part. So instead of businesses using shadow IT to buy cloud services or other tools, they're going to security and they're working with us to ensure that they're doing it right and that we're working with them to help them achieve that in as fast and integral way as possible. So a couple of present security ideas that I would always talk about that are near and dear to what I believe in. First, it's this one. It's, for me, it's part and parcel for how you achieve growth, how you lead markets, and that is rails over barriers. So instead of establishing barriers to stop developers from doing things, from stopping your employees from doing things, give them some rails, give them some guidance, let them know what's admissible, what's not admissible. It's up to us to do that. It's up to us to build those rails in place so that we can accelerate the business, we can enable the business. Secondly, there's DevSecOps. And so as you're developing your code, as you're developing your ideas, the point is we want to get our ideas, our security ideas, as close to the development process, as close to the product initiation process as possible. And what that, once you can able to do that, is you can build an openness and transparency so that security isn't bolted onto the environment. Security becomes an integral part, because we want, once again, security to be an enabler, security to be that missing piece so that our companies aren't the next companies that's making the headlines. Our companies hopefully are leading the way in terms of building secure products instead of lagging behind, always falling victim to ransomware. But obviously now we live in some interesting times. And one of the things that's happened is our home environment and our work environment has melded together. And what that's caused us to do is many things. You know, it's caused us all to work, you know, in front of our computers all the time and you know, never take a break. And one of the other things that's caused is our adversaries to pick up their game because their home and work environment has changed as well. So now, the same way you're at home in front of your computer, when you roll out of bed instead of driving to work, maybe, the attackers are doing the exact same thing. So their hours of attacking have expanded the same way, unfortunately, our hours of working has expanded. And so one of the things that's happened is that's caused some supply chain issues during these exciting times. And one of the things that's happened is the corruption of supply chain issues. And the corruption simply means we don't actually get it. You know, they'll disrupt something such that, you know, this piece of code that we were supposed to get was, you know, tinkered with or it was messed with so that it's not proper anymore. They also work on deception such that instead of, because there's a supply chain chip shortage, instead of you getting a chip that maybe came from company X, they've relabeled it and it really comes from company Y. But because they're experiencing supply chain issues, they may not want to publicly disclose that. So us as security practitioners have to be cognizant of the different types of supply chain issues that we may encounter. That may be software vendors, that may be hardware vendors, but as a whole, we have to own the whole process because what that'll also cause is disruption. We're not able to order certain parts on time or have certain code delivered on time because of the supply chain issues that we're currently facing. And what that's all boiled down to is now we're starting to have to implement in a faster fashion zero trust. Before the interesting times, zero trust was a nice buzzword. Once the interesting times hit, we accelerated to zero trust. But the problem is if you didn't have a good peer network or if you didn't have a good foundation, your zero trust implementation may not have been implemented in the proper way. So here's a few things to think about when you think about zero trust. Traffic segmentation. Ensure that the traffic that you're using is segmented, that we're making sure that the users are going through the right channels. Second is information segmentation. Ensuring that maybe financial information is already separated from, you know, business information that's set from, you know, code information. That may seem like introductory table stakes or novice, but you'll be surprised how many companies don't adequately segregate their information. The other thing that's need to be understood is what I call discrete privilege allocation. And what this means is that you consider least privilege, but it's not even least privilege. It's ensuring that we are assigning and building certain user roles that are specific to the job that needs to be done. And we're only giving that. So it may be a database administrator that only needs to turn on the device. If the database administrator never needs to do anything else besides turn on the device, why allow them to restart a device or restart a system or do those type of things? You build these discrete privileges so that you can ensure that the person who you're giving these privileges to can do exactly what you want them to do and nothing else. The other big thing about zero trust is user and asset identification as well as verification. What I like to say is verify and then verify again who that user, who that asset is, and then finally trust. Because once you get to the trusting phase, it's a little late to go to the verify phase. So make sure you verify twice or more than that, and then you trust. And then lastly, the big thing about zero trust is we just simply assume breach. We assume that we've been breached. And so we're going to try our best to understand that we're going to be in a hostile environment or an environment where an attacker may be lurking, and we're going to build controls around that. So those were a couple of examples. And here's some more examples about legacy security that has been transformed, enabling the business. Traditional VPNs, prior to the pandemic and prior to the interesting times and in the years past, many of our users and employees only use VPN just to log in. They would do a little quick work, log in a VPN. Maybe they were sick that day, maybe something happened, and VPN was just a tool just to connect to the company's network. Now, VPN is seen as a business enabler. We're taking these users that in these disparate locations where now the remote workforce is truly global. And so we're taking all this data and we're feeding it into our devices that's built into the VPN. So we have the security monitoring built in. We have firewalls built in. We have, our logging and, security checks built in. And we also have the health of machine built in. And we're taking all of that in our new enhanced and adaptive VPNs solutions that we're using. And we're parsing that data so that only the nice, good data is coming out so that we can have a nice, holistic machine. That's the way the security has enabled the business, especially during these trying times, when some companies can't even go into their office. How are they able to still work? How are they able to still achieve growth? That's a VPN that enables the business. That's security that enables the business. So next, we'll talk about next security ideas. So as I was saying before, security is always evolving. And one of the things that evolution requires or you need new inputs, you need new ideas. Because if you don't know what's possible, it's hard to imagine it. It's almost like when somebody first did the first backflip. You didn't even realize you could jump backwards. You always thought you had to jump forward, but then somebody suddenly showed you, oh, you can jump backwards. Does that mean you can jump sideways too? Is that within the realm? And so by understanding new input, by seeing new ideas, that's the way we can become evolutionary or great security. And so one of the ways that we try to do that on my team is we try to do a proof of concept or test a new security product that's related to a need that we have at least once a month or something in that lines. And so one of the things that does for me and my team is it builds a certain agility in place. So instead of us always, worrying about, oh, we have to do this big, massive change to our environment, we're so used to changes, it just becomes commonplace. Secondly, it builds experience working with new and great tools. So instead of us being shocked by this new tool that came out or this new concept that came out, we're ready for it. We're ready for the new shift in security. We're ready for the new shift in ideas. We're ready for the next evolution. And so evolution over iteration, security as a business enabler. One of the examples I always like to use is that one of the issues that we have as we're building out our environment, as the environment has been around for 5, 10, 15 years, is we're having these old iterations. And what I mean by that is that you start off your company and you work in security, and you started off with just maybe log files. And then you started off and you took log files and you coupled them with IP addresses. Not a big deal. And then you took log files, you took IP addresses, and then you started taking host names. And then you keep adding data in, adding data in, adding data in. And at the end of the day, you realize you're doing 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. And we, being in the middle of it, we're just practicing security, trying to make sure that we don't get breached. We don't have time to look at the big picture. We don't have time to be holistic about it. But one of the things that I always tell people is you have to make the time. You have to, because at the end of the day, you realize that what you were really doing is you were doing addition. And instead of doing addition, why not evolve and start doing multiplication? Instead of saying 2 plus 2 plus 2, we realize that 2 times 8 equals 16. And we're able to achieve that result so much faster, because I'm saddened when I see my peers constantly complaining about there's not enough time in the day. I'm having to manually do this. I'm trying to build up this automation in my environment. Instead of them saying, I understand it's going to take some pain. I understand it's going to be rough in the beginning, but we have to evolve to an automated place. And so with that being said, I encourage you, please take the time. It will take some pain, but you have to evolve to some form of artificial intelligence or some form of machine learning. I don't care if you start doing baby steps to bash scripting. You will never evolve your security program to be able to achieve low dwell time, rapid response if you're still doing things on a manual basis. Automate, automate, automate. And so once you start automating, once you start gathering this data, we can then get to a point where we get to what I like to call threat forecasting. So threat forecasting would look similar to this. So we can take the black top left area and we can call that network logs. We can take the blue data and we can call that threat intelligence from different threat intelligence vendor. So you may have multiple threat intelligence vendor X, vendor Y. You can call the orange, that would be host data. And the green may be IP address information, because one user could have an IP address for a phone, they could have an IP address for the laptop, the iPad, you name it. But once you get to a certain point where you're accumulating the data and you're gathering it in a centralized location, what you can do is say, okay, we realize based on all this data that we're going to have a season of spyware. We're going to have a month of ransomware attacks. And so once you can actually take the data and consistently predict the type of attacks that are going to come your way, then you can bring out your protective umbrella to say, okay, if we know that the attackers are going to come using spyware and they're going to attack our email system, why not use our money and strategically spend more for this period of time on these type of tools that prevent spyware on our mail system? And that is what I mean by threat forecasting. There are many entities that are doing this currently today, and they're achieving great results with that. And so I just want to expose you to that, because we don't want to keep doing iterative approaches. We want to make sure our security is evolving so that we're doing things that the stock market, that the weatherman or the weatherwoman are doing already. They're already able to predict weather. The stock market is already able to predict if a stock is going to go up or down. We should have enough data by now, especially for our own environment, to predict what may happen next. Not to be 100% accurate, but it's better than the guessing game that many of us are currently doing. And so there is no one company or entity that is doing this the best or the greatest. What happens is we need our best ideas. We need the help of you. ISA needs the help of you. Netflix DVD needs the help of you. I need for you to give me your ideas and say, Jimmy, that was a great idea, but maybe if you think about it this way, or have you tried this approach? Because if if I can't question my own security tactics and techniques, then I feel like I'm not doing a great job. I'm doing a disservice to my company and my end users. And so by saying that, what we really need is security diversity. And I'm not saying diversity for diversity's sake. I'm saying it to make our security program better. Because at the end of the day, I want the best security program I can create. And the only way to do that is by having a diverse personnel of thought leaders. I need people who will think in X dimension, people who think in Y dimension, and people who may not think that much at all. But when they do have a thought in their head, it's an amazing idea. And I'm like, wow, that was genius. But unless you enable a platform to let everybody involved, to let all your personnel give you their input, to give you their spectrum of ideas, you will have a lot of groupthink. You will have a lot of people who end up being the security leader, the security thought leader, and you always listen to their ideas. But the problem is that once the attacker can crack that code of that person's mind, then you're hosed or you're lacking in terms of your security. Security diversity also means diverse tactics. So instead of always trying the same thing day after day, you'll have people say, hey, Jimmy, why aren't you trying it this way? Hey, Jimmy, why aren't you trying it that way? And so that's amazing. And then lastly, in terms of techniques, so by talking to my peers, by talking to a large spectrum of people, I'm always getting new techniques, new ideas, new tactics to try. Not to say that they always work, but unless we listen to people, unless we try them out, unless we're diverse in our mindset and we have an open mind, we'll always be doing iterative approaches. Oh, well, it worked in the past, so we might as well keep it going. To me, that's a horrible way of thinking. I'm never concentrating or spending my time on things that worked in the past. I'm trying to push the needle. I'm trying to make sure that our security practices are ahead of the curve, that's ahead of our adversaries. And so with that being said, I was saying all ideas are welcome. Hopefully we're having an open plate, an open field of ideas. And so with that, we need increased diversity, because the same way of doing security for the last 20, 25 years hasn't stopped the amount of news about security from entering our environment. We need security champions and advocates. What I mean by that is we need people who may be in the development team, who may be on the finance team, who may be, just an HR or, a secretary. And they will speak for security when security is not in the room. They will think in a security way and communicate with security, because the security practitioner may not be able to be on every team, may not be able to be on every meeting. But by having security champions or advocates within your environment can help echo and amplify your security voice. So that's a great idea that you can think about as well. And if these interesting times hasn't shown us anything, hopefully it's shown us this thing, that we, the collective we, need to be more interconnected. We need to talk to each other more. We need to figure out what we're doing good and what we're doing bad. Because at the end of the day, we all need to be sharing the best practices to create the best security possible. Thank you very much. This is Jimmy Sanders with Evolution over Iteration. And one of the big things, and the reason why I do these presentations, and the reason why I'm so happy to be at Mind the Sec 2021, is because hopefully we're sharing the best of breed security practice, whether it's ISSA, whether it's ISACA, whether it's your amazing organization that you're currently having. I encourage you, please share your ideas, bring out the best of breed in everybody's security practices. And if you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to me. I'm Jimmy Sanders, and it's been great talking with you.